Oh, did the usual freeze there, but I think we are now live. So welcome, welcome. Lovely to see you here. I can see Claire bouncing around the bottom of my screen. How lovely. So nice to have you here. What a lovely, lovely thing to know that you're here. And I can see someone else bouncing around on the screen. But if you can, oh, you can hear me. Good. Thank you, Claire. There's always like a glitchy start with mine. I'm not quite sure what that's about. It's like the internet sort of does a little explosion, a mini hizzy fit when I hit to start. So it's always good to hear that people can see and hear me. I'm experimenting with backgrounds today. So I've just upgraded my operating system on my laptop, and it's given me all kinds of exciting things that I can do. So yeah, so we've got a blurry background, which is apparently portrait mode. So there you go. So I'm going to wait a few minutes just for people to trickle in, as normally happens on here. It seems to take a while for the notifications to go up onto Insight Timer and for people to kind of click in and join. So we will just hang fire before starting to talk about being curious about life. So that's the theme, the kind of theme running through each of my lives. So I'm doing one most weeks at this time. If you haven't been to one before, then welcome. It's lovely to have you here. But the theme that runs through all of them is about being curious about life, and then sometimes there's a more specific kind of idea that comes to me, I guess, within that. So when I was out walking my dog this morning, the quote by Salvador Poe, and I might have got it slightly wrong, but it's I'm reading a few of his books at the moment, and one of the things that really jumped out at me was when he says, "Where do you want to live? Freedom and truth, or this mental nut house?" And there's something about that just I really love, and I thought it would be fun to explore today. So that's the plan for today, looking at where we want to live, and that's quite a confrontational question, I think, potentially, but hopefully one that sort of wakes us all up to where we are actually living and what we are focused on. Hello to Joe. Hello, Elena. Lovely to see you. I don't think I've seen you for the last few weeks, but I could be wrong. Anyway, it is lovely to have you here. Joe says he loves a confrontational question. Jolly good. Yes, it's always good to have a little bit of poking, isn't it? That's what I think. So that's what the purpose of these conversations are about, I guess, is just to give us some questions to think about, some places to look, and hopefully by the end of the live, you'll go away with just some things to contemplate. And me too. I get to contemplate this stuff too. I'm no expert. I'm not an enlightened being, whatever that is. I'm simply here, it seems, to question what's going on and to get curious and to look rather than just accept what we've been told, I guess. And I don't know why I'm here to do that, but it seems to be what I'm here to do. It kind of started with being a scientist and getting curious, I suppose, about how things in the world work, and latterly, over the last 10 years or so, just a real curiosity about how life works in general, and questioning some of the unquestioned truths that we just take on as being truths. So yeah, whereabouts is everybody? Hi Kathy, lovely to see you. And I love that there's like people, I love that there's people here that know other people here. How cool is that? What a lovely platform, a lovely community. One other thing that I should say, and I can see there's a kingfisher here. How beautiful is that? I adore kingfishers. In fact, I've literally so I've been playing, some of you that were here last week will know that I'm doing a program online at the moment. It's called Living Miraculously. Probably not meant to tell you anything about that because it's not on Insight Timer. But anyway, it's about living miraculously. I guess name is fairly self-explanatory. But this week's challenge, and it was pretty challenging to me, was to consider that all of us have a spiritual team, or a something beyond what we can know and see, that is there to support us in this physical kind of realm, I guess. And some of you will be very on board with that and familiar with that, and others, I guess my scientific head comes in and it's like, I don't really know. I don't know whether I believe that. And that's okay. It's like, it's there to be just, again, like these conversations that I offer up to you, it's just to explore. And anyway, our assignment was to ask for support from that spiritual team, whatever that looks like, however that looks. And it might be that there's something that you're trying to do, and so it's asking for support in, or a sign that you're on the right path. Or what I did was a very general thing, which was, I said to Dad, who passed over, I don't know, two and a bit years ago, if you're around, just tell me, give me a sign and make it obvious. So that was what I did, just literally just before we came on here. And so that was my assignment for this week. And I kind of was like, okay, let's just do it because it's the assignment. And I keep my mind open because, well, why wouldn't I keep my mind open? And as I just said, I've just seen that there's a kingfisher bobbing around on the screen. So for me as a teacher, I don't know what you guys can see, but whenever people appear meditating, we get to see images of, whatever the profile picture is for that person. And somebody has chosen a kingfisher. Hello, kingfisher, whoever you are. To me, you're my dad. Because my dad loved to fish. It was his massive hobby. He was a fisher person. He was completely obsessed with fishing, and a kingfisher's here. So whether I believe it or not, that there is a spiritual team or people who have left us in the physical realm are still here to support us, whether I believe that intellectually or not, I think that might be my sign. And it's made me feel a bit teary. But yeah, amazing. Anyway, that's not what I was here to talk about today, but there's my sign. So I thought I'd share that with you while we waited for people to arrive. Michelle is here from Chile, Ontario. Lovely to see you again. And yeah, sorry it's still cold, but I guess it's going to be for a few months still in Canada. Joe is open to challenging questions, I think. And I love that everyone's saying hi to everyone else. How lovely is that? And Joe is saying amazing to my little sign there. I'd love to know, Kingfisher, where you are in the world, just to, if you're able to put in the comments that you that would be pretty cool. Anyway, so I guess if there's anyone here who has a specific reason for showing up that you're consciously aware of, then let me know in the comments. If there was something about the title, you haven't been before and you were curious, or you have been before and you have a question about something that's come up before, or if there's something on your mind that you would like to explore, then do put that in the comments, because as those of you who have been before will know, I like to make these as interactive as I can given the platform, and you do have the facility to put a message that I will see in the comments section, so that's really is a great way of me being able to kind of answer anything that might be coming up for you, or if you want to share anything that's on your mind, or you want to share anything about your curiosity about life or what you're seeing or anything like that, then please do put that in the comments. It's always lovely to have a little bit of interaction where possible. What I normally do is I normally speak for, I can't tell you how long it's going to be. I mean, I always imagine it's going to be about 5 minutes, and sometimes it's, I don't know, 25 minutes or something. I will speak for as long as speaking happens, and I will shut the comments. I won't be looking at the comments while I'm doing that, so I don't get distracted. And then I'll come back to the comments. So if there's stuff that comes up while I'm talking, while I'm sharing around this, where do we want to live from Freedom and Truth, or this mental Nuthouse, while I'm talking about that, if anything comes up for you, then feel free to put it in the comments, and I'll come back to it at the end and address anything there that's popped in. Joe is saying he's open to the idea that there are supporting beings beyond what we can understand. Yeah, that's cool. You're very open-minded, and I love that about you. Michelle K, we got 2 Michelles, is rising from Nebraska. First time here. The question, where do I want to live, in the title piqued my interest. Fabulous. Well, it's so lovely to have you here, Michelle K. And the other Michelle, of course. Yeah, it's an interesting question, isn't it? And I will go on to explore shortly. Michelle, for me, I'm really struggling with engaging in destructive eating disorder behaviours at the moment. Oh, Michelle, I'm sorry to hear that. And it's really wonderful to have you here. And let's just see what gets heard. And what if everything is just as it's meant to be? And like I often say in these sessions, I really know that I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't have anything planned. I don't have these things planned. Like, an idea comes into my mind, and then I just follow that. So I don't know what I'm going to say, but I can trust that whatever gets said is what needs to be heard by those that are here, and that those that are here because there's something for them to hear from me for whatever reason. And so I kind of just trust that now. I don't know what I'm going to say, and whatever I'm going to say is what I need to hear too. So before I kick off, I would just say about donations. If there's anybody that would like to donate towards this session, that would be hugely appreciated. It just helps me to run these sessions. I do these obviously for free, and any donations that come in just help me to carry on offering things like this for people that can't afford to pay for the services that I offer. So that, just to let you know about that. Kathy is navigating a difficult period at the moment, feeling limbo, but hopeful that everything will be okay. Yeah, that's really beautiful, Kathy. And I guess there's something in there, like the hope that everything will be okay. What if, I don't know, like, I guess what I feel invited to say to you is, what if you know that everything will be okay? I mean, for me, when I look back at all the difficult times that have happened in my life, I have been okay, even when it felt like I wasn't okay. And just seeing that kind of helps me to know that even now I'm okay. And I don't know whether that makes sense. So rather than the hope that everything will be okay, has everything been okay up until this point in your life, even when it hasn't felt like it has been at the time? I would just point you towards that. Yeah. Oh, lots of love being sent to people, which is beautiful. Okay, so I'm just gonna stop being distracted by comments. I'm gonna come to what it is that I was going to explore today, which was this quote from Salvador Poe, which was, "Where do you want to live? Freedom and truth, or this mental nuthouse?" And for me, it's kind of like a really stark reminder that we're almost oblivious to the fact that we live 99.9% of our lives being directed by what is going on in our minds. And Salvador Poe refers to that as the mental nuthouse, which I find quite amusing because it is totally nutty what goes on inside my head. And yet we just go along with it. Like, we just believe everything that this mind churns out. And something that I love about there's a book by Michael Singer, and he starts off by talking about this kind of, I can't remember what he calls it. Joe might know because he loves the book too. But like, he talks about how there's this incessant voice in our heads, what feels like it's in our heads. And how, if that was a friend, if it was like a family member speaking to us in the way that narrative speaks to us, we wouldn't put up with it for very long. Like, we wouldn't put up with that person for very long. We would be like, you're not my friend. Why on earth why are you here? Like, if we had someone sitting in the room that was just going, oh, do you know what? You can't do that because you're not good enough. And what are people going to think of you if you do that? Because you're such a loser. Like, blah, 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 and on, and whatever your flavour of, criticism and put downs and whatever is in here. If there was a person saying that to you, you would not put up with it. And yet we're oblivious to it. It's like, from the moment we were born, I always say, it always feels to me like we were born with a radio in our minds, or our heads, or wherever it feels like it is. Like, we were born with this constant narration, and it's kind of just regurgitating everything that our parents told us, what society has told us, what our teachers told us, the rules that we've been given, and the ideas, the beliefs, all of that. It's just like a record playing. And for whatever reason, we put all our attention on it, or maybe not all of our attention on it, but a lot of our attention onto that, and make it, and we think it's personal. We think it's about us. We think it's instructions. And how I like to think of it is like, it's just like a radio. Like, when we've got Talk Sport playing, if you're in the UK, you'll know what Talk Sport is. It's a radio station where they just talk. You'll have your equivalent in whatever country you're in. So a talking radio station, like, we might have that playing. But we know that's not us. We know that what they say isn't the truth. We know that what they say are not instructions for how we should behave, or what we should be doing, or what we shouldn't be doing. Like, we just know it's a radio, and there's like presenters on there that are just talking. And when they're talking about something interesting, we might stop and listen. And the rest of the time, it's just on in the background whilst we carry on our day. And there's something about considering that it's the same with this, what we think of as an inner narrative. That it's just noise. It's just a regurgitation, like I say, of everything that's been picked up on our life in this form, just playing around and around, and it's not personal, and it doesn't mean anything about us, and the fact that we can hear it in the same way that we can hear the radio, we know we're not the radio, because there's a separation. There's me, and there's me listening to the radio. There's me and the radio. There's me and the voices on the radio. So what if this inner narrative, like, what if that's the same? Like, can you see that there's me and then there's me hearing this inner narrative? So how can it be me? It's just an impersonal regurgitation, and it seems personal because it's made up of things that have been experienced or witnessed or whatever, but it's still separate. And when we get curious about that, it's like suddenly there's a space. Suddenly there's this, and if the only thing that comes out of this is that there's a distance, there's suddenly an awareness of this narrative. What is this narrative? What's it saying? What's it having me believe? What's it having me do? And what if it was just, it didn't need to be listened to? Not that we have to get rid of it, not that we have to change it. Like, how could we? I mean, some of you may, I came from a world of self-development, and it was all about changing thoughts and making them better, making them nicer, and it kind of works for a while, and then it stops working. And what I've got curious about is, like, well, why is that? And to me, it looks like, well, why is that? Because we don't get to control thought. It just happens, like thinking happens. And there's the witness to it. There's the one that's hearing it. There's the one that's seeing it. There's the one that's feeling it. There's the one that's experiencing it. And so when we come to be curious about that, there's just this replaying of ideas and things that have been collected up along our physical path. And we can just witness them. And instead of sitting down and making a cup of tea and getting a biscuit and like really listening to what it has to say, this inner narrator, if you like, what happens when we just notice it? We just notice. I used to be horrible, like the thinking that had been picked up was horrible about myself. It was, you're such an idiot. I can't believe you just did that. I would drop something, and it had got to the point where not only did I think, oh my God, you're such an idiot, why did you just drop that? I would actually verbalize it. And I think that was one of the wake-up calls for me, was like, because I had kids around, and just realizing that they were then going to learn that. They were going to learn to listen to that inner narrator. There was something in that for me that was just like, oh no, I wouldn't speak to anyone like that. Why am I speaking to myself like that? So coming back to, where do we want to live? Do we want to live with our cup of tea and our biscuit, listening intently to everything that narrative has to say and believing it all to be true, and feeling if that inner narrative is less than helpful? Because for some of us it may be helpful. Brilliant, no issue. I'm talking about where it's creating a feeling of restriction, and however that shows up. Do we want to sit down and spend our lives being led around by that, listening intently to it and following everything it says. And that is living in the mental nut house. Or do we want to live in freedom and truth? And even just those words to me is like, I know where I want to live. Because I feel what freedom and truth feels like when I even consider the words freedom, truth. What do they mean to you? What do they feel like to you? Can you in this moment connect to those words, to the meaning, to the feeling of those words? And then just for a moment, consider what's been going on in your mind. Maybe even just this morning of like, oh, I've got to do this and I've got to do that and I haven't done that yet and I should have done this and I ought to have done that. And the feeling of that, whatever that's been for you. Where do you want to live? Because freedom and truth is here right now when we pay less attention to that mental narrative. If you just consider for a moment, without reference to the thinking, to the thoughts that are passing through you right now, what is there? For me, that is freedom and truth. That is always here. You can call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it well-being, you can call it peace, you can call it love, you can call it openness, emptiness, expansive, aware, God. You can call it whatever you call it. The name isn't important. It's knowing, it's feeling it. It's knowing of it. It might be that you feel it when you're doing the thing that you love the most. So what do you love the most? Maybe it's cooking, maybe it's gardening, maybe it's cycling, maybe it's swimming, maybe it's dance, maybe it's listening to music. Whatever it is, when you're doing that thing and suddenly there's no you there, it's just there's just oneness with whatever it is. And time disappears, like time doesn't exist there. To know of that, that's the truth. That's who you are. That's what you were born as. And that's never changed. That's never gone anywhere. Never does go anywhere. And so then the question, where do you want to live? Do you want to live from there, or do you want to live from the mental nut house? It's like a game of feelings. How does one feel? How does the other feel? So when we're navigating life, it comes down to feelings. Does this feel expansive? Does this feel peaceful? Does this feel loving? Or does it feel constricted, restricted, uncomfortable? And for me, that's my navigation system. Like any time that there's engagement with that conditioned thinking, with the logical mind that comes with a restriction, that restricted feeling is simply pointing me to, oh yeah, I'm in the mental nut house. What do I want? I want freedom and truth. Oh, that's here. When I stop engaging in that. So I'm going to come back to the comments because I can see that there's been a few. I would love to know if anything has caught your attention in anything I've said, or if anything's come up, or if there's anything that you'd like to share, just pop it into the comments. Oh yeah, Joe's saying it's your inner roommate. Yeah, that's it. that narrative that we would not put up with. Like if they were an actual roommate, we wouldn't have them. We would throw them out. But for some reason, we don't recognise. that that's an option, if you like. That in any moment we can stop listening. That our attention can go elsewhere. Oh, Joe, thank you so much for your donation. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you. And Claire is saying, yes, the same awful inner voice spoken out loud. Indeed, it was when it started to be spoken out loud that I was like, wow, that's not nice. And it's just about, like, I've talked about lots. It's just becoming aware. It's just noticing. It's a noticing of this. There's no judgment. There doesn't need to be judgment about it. Just a noticing of, wow, what did just come out of my mouth? Wow, what was that thought? Well, that wasn't kind. Or just a noticing, like nothing to change. Just to see. Kathy's saying it's all old stories and habits, like a childhood program. I like being curious about it. Feels more open and expansive. I think when you're going through a tough time, you can be more identified with it, though, which I have been today, and that's okay. Doesn't mean anything about me. Yeah, that's so true, Kathy. So true. And I guess it's just great that you know that. That's just the way it works. You're going through a tough time, and so anything that's going on in thinking, in the mind, it's like, oh yeah, maybe be more suspicious of, even more suspicious of, like, because I'm not feeling great, and there's, life seems to be quite hard at the moment. And so that to me is like, okay, yeah, let's just step away. Let's stop driving. Let's just pull over. The warning lights are all going off in the car dashboard. If we're driving a car and all warning lights go off, we stop, right? We pull over, and then we think about what to do next. And this is a great example. It's like when there's all the feelings of like tightness and restriction and difficulty and unease and everything else. Kathy, you're absolutely right. It's like, so we're going through a tough time and all the warning lights are going off, and those warning lights are not telling us to carry on. They're telling us to just stop and rest and just wait. And when in that waiting process, like everything can settle, all of the unease, all of that thinking can just pass by, and then resourcefulness arises again. So I think it's really great to know that, yeah, when you're having a tough time, you can be more identified with it all. And just to be as kind to yourself as you possibly can be. Joe says, without all the stories and thoughts, there is openness and expanse. Yeah. And in any moment, there can be that, right? We can revisit there in any moment, because that's there before all of the stories and thoughts. Michelle says, I think about living in this place where my inner bully roommate no longer convinces me that binge eating will make me feel better. However, I know that my compassionate inner self has my back and tells me that I'm okay, and it's okay not to be perfect. Yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah. And that inner roommate, well, it'll convince you until it doesn't anymore, until it just doesn't make any sense to pay attention to it. And when that is, and it may be never, but it's not on us. There's nobody here controlling that. At some point, maybe there'll be an insight You'll see something from within, and it won't make sense anymore. And like we've talked about that, we've talked about how change happens. It comes from seeing something different. And a great example I love is, in ancient days when people thought the world was flat, when people went fishing, there's the fish again, they would go sort of halfway towards the horizon and they would drop the anchor because they believed that they would fall off at the horizon because they thought the world was flat. And as soon as their understanding changed and they understood that the world was in fact a sphere, they no longer did that behaviour anymore. It made no sense to them. It wasn't that they had to try not to drop the anchor, like dropping the anchor just didn't occur to them anymore. And that's how change happens. And so, to know that at some point, maybe you'll see something different about binge eating. But until that time, then that's just the best that you know to do. You're doing the best that you can do, given whatever's being believed. And we're all doing the best that we can, given what is being believed, what has been acquired, if you like, in our programming that we're just not conscious of. And we don't get to set the time scale for that. And as you say, Michelle, there's something in you that tells you that you're okay and it's okay not to be perfect. And how beautiful. Beautiful. Joe says he loves that the feeling of restriction is a navigator. Yeah. And I think the more that I lean into the desire to live from freedom and trust, and the expansive feeling that allows, when there's a restricted feeling, it feels so much more uncomfortable and kind of brings me back more quickly. Hi, says Mike. Hi. Nicole, you are the kingfisher. It's lovely to have you here. You're saying I've really been focused on my thoughts lately, negativity and fear, and realising how it is sabotaging me. Yeah. And that's just the way it is. Sometimes that's just the way it is. And in any moment, following a conversation with a friend or listening to something or whatever, there can be the realisation that, oh yeah, I don't need to listen to that. And then what's here, then what arises. It's so beautiful. But there's no need to beat yourself up for it. It's just what's happening right here, right now. There's a focus on negativity and fear until there isn't. Sorry, dog barking. We didn't let her out. That's my mum arriving. Michelle says, sometimes that inner roommate pays the bills and comes in handy when protecting us because they sometimes show up in that way. Yeah, and I would get curious about that, because the idea that that narrative can be helpful, can hold us into listening to everything it says. And I would say, yeah, just be curious. Is that true? Is it the inner roommate that pays the bills? Or is it that a thought arises from all that we are, with ideas about how to pay the bills? I don't know. Curiosity about what's really going on is just what we're looking at here. Peace, what a beautiful name. Says, really landed, Vicky. I've been so stressed recently. Mum in hospital, car died. I lost some money in an investment and I'm so stressed about finding the time to get ahead again. But I know that just 4 days ago I was fine. In fact, I was happy. My mind is going around the problems I think I need to solve. What a load of BS. Oh. Yeah, that's beautiful, Peace. It sounds like Yeah, sounds like you've heard something, and that's amazing. So lovely that you were here. And on that note, I think that looks like the perfect place to end. We are all fine, and it's beautiful to know that, and connect to that. Underneath all of that crazy thinking, there's perfection, there's wholeness, there's okay, and that's always there. And yeah, I'm sure all of us are sending love and healing vibes to your mum, and compassion to everybody that's here. Nicole's got one question. What do you suggest to do when the negative thoughts come up? I've just started to focus on my breath. Well, it sounds like you have the perfect answer to your own question, and your own answers are always going to be far more impactful than anything I could ever say. If it occurs to you that focusing on your breath is what would be helpful when negative thought comes up, then that is the perfect thing in that moment for you. And to hold on to and be aware of that in every moment there can be something different. So it doesn't mean that you always have to focus on your breath. But in the moment that that thought arises of, it would be helpful to focus on my breath, then we focus on our breath. Knowing that the intelligence behind life, that which we are, is ever responsive. And so maybe next week or in an hour's time or whenever, the next time a negative thought comes up, there may be a different idea that arises. And that's the beauty. Like, we don't have to hold on to one process, one technique. We never have to, because we are the responsiveness of life. And so in every moment you'll know what's best. And it's just about checking in with that. Like, what makes sense? What makes sense for me right now? And that's it. Like, navigation system is built into us. So sending you all heaps of love, and I will be here. I won't be here next week, I don't think. I may be. It's half term here, so we'll see. But I'll definitely be here the week after. But if you follow me here on Insight Timer, you'll get an alert, I think, when I next go live. So that's probably the easiest way to find out. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. I will see you all soon. Sending lots of love. Bye.